30%, 20%, 10%. But then when I actually plugged in the numbers and started looking at the percentages, I was like, oh, okay, this is giving maybe a little too much to long tail. So I dropped them to 5%. I actually dropped low to 15 as well. And I upped mid to 40. So both high and mid are splitting 40%. But of course, there's twice as many high people as mid. So then I was just doing the multiplication and saying, okay, this is 10,000 total impact hours, which again is a parameter. I just picked that number because it seemed like we were about 10,000 impact hours in our existing system. And of course that can change, but ultimately it's just a pi. So I don't think it really matters. Like we could change that even to one, and it would just be like fractions of an impact hour as opposed to, it's just the numerator. No, it would be the denominator. So anyway, it doesn't actually matter how many impact hours we hand out. It's just the proportion that everyone has relative to everyone else. And then, so how it worked out was this is the original distribution. This is the updated distribution and the difference between them. So I was just trying to play with it to see how do we create a situation where the least people are impacted by this and the most people are equitably treated. And I mean, I don't think the initial distribution that I shared was very good with the 40, 30, 20, 10. So now it's 40, 40, 15, 5. And again, I think we could probably play with some of these numbers. So there's a couple of different levers here. One, we can change the bucket that people are in. I don't know all of the contributions of everyone in the TEC, so I can imagine there would be some people that say, hey, this person is mid, should be high, or this person is low, should be mid, or whatever. We could definitely throw that out to people who want to. We could probably get like 3 or 5 different perspectives and then average them and then get sort of a bucketing like that. And then understanding sort of the breakdown of percentage of governance in these tiers and what was the other? Total number of impact hours doesn't really matter, but we can also play with the bucket percentages. So determining, maybe high deserves more, maybe low deserves more. We can kind of play with it, see the numbers, how they shake out, and then go from there. So that was sort of the data analysis that I was doing, just hacky in this sheet, as it was looking like there may be further questions about PRAISEMAGEDON. I was just trying to get a first approximation in and play with the numbers a little bit. So that was kind of the thought that's been put into applying PRAISEMAGEDON so far. Of course, we are talking about compromising with the idea to do infinite vesting on paid contributors who had impact hours removed. So how would that merge with this? That's a question I'm definitely open to exploring. So from Griff's proposal here, I think you said we take the percentage of.
So the idea would be that we would determine an actual distribution. I mean, that's got to be that's critical. Way further. It's like the last one. It's like the last post. I guess second to last. So we would take the number of people who voted, going back to how do we compromise? So I think that there's a couple options. In the end, this was kind of a first past the post voting system, so maybe we only apply the top 2 that were close and kind of just completely ignore the votes that were at the bottom. Although we could also count the votes at the bottom and multiply them by. So we could do like a distribution, an impact hour distribution for each of the 4 proposals, assuming like it had 1. This is the impact hours that would have been given. And so we could do that for each one and then just multiply it by the number of votes. Or we could just do the top 2, which are the ones that like kind of ended up. I mean, if we were doing this right, if we could do this right, like I feel like we would just split the baby in 4. But because it got strategic and people started voting for one or the other 2, I think it makes more sense to just care about the top 2. And then make distributions for both of them. I mean, for the top one, it's easy. Nothing changes. And then, other than we do a praise party on Sunday. And then For yours, we have to hack on a praise distribution hardcore, and I would obviously love to help with that. And then we just say, okay, yours got this many votes. The PRAISEMAGEDON got this many votes. No intervention, no abnormal intervention got that many votes. There's out of those sets of votes, multiplied by percentage, and then each person's impact hour, they basically have the impact hour set would be multiplied by the percentage of votes. And then we get a final impact hour number.
And how would that impact the infinite vesting?
Infinite vesting is going to be something that the TEC hatch DAO has to decide on, right? There would be a vote thing. So I would put that out of scope for now. I mean, maybe we compromise it because it really doesn't have to be thought about for about 35 days, or doesn't have to be decided on. So maybe we have another call in 3 weeks or something about that. And I think we also just need to see what the results really look like, because I think you still give a deduction of 50%. Is that right?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that because Jeff's proposal addresses that, and then there was Tam's proposal that it also addresses that, the infinite vesting would be an option for if we didn't have anything else addressing that problem. So maybe we can come to a level of compromise on how can we apply something that was proposed in PRAISEMAGEDON to like that talks with the infinite vesting idea. Maybe find like a middle ground there of what would be a deduction that maybe doesn't have to be the 50% that was being proposed or something.
Well, I mean, for at least for my proposal, it's that the financial thing was okay, and it's a governance thing, and there's nothing we can do about governance at this stage. Because like I really do think that the people who got impact hours and were paid should have way more governance than they do, but I don't actually think they should have more money necessarily. But like, damn it, there's like this like imbalance between there's this core the one for one, thing for money and governance. So I think that I imagine that we would just be like, oh hey, so 50 and 85, before it was 75% of that was being deducted, and maybe now we go and we find all the deductions and we see how many deductions were undone, and we do 75% of that, something. I don't know, but it's like there's nothing in the end. The DAO could even vote no or not have a quorum, and then it wouldn't pass. So it's like, well, I'd really love to just cut that from scope, because it's like it's not something that we can. It's like by the time we get the results from this, then we'll probably be informed enough to make that decision of how we would compromise, but we need the results from this first.
Right. So one clarification. So in PRAISEMAGEDON, I proposed a 50% increase for people who are unpaid, which I guess would be a 33% decrease for people who aren't. So say you got 100 as a paid contributor, you would have gotten 150 as an unpaid contributor. So it was a 33%. So if you go from 150 down to 100, it's a 33% docking or a 50% increase, depending if you look at it as docking paid people or bonus or.
Do you have that in your sheet? Because I think you had it the other way.
I did. I had it in the.
It looks like it's doubling
over here.
Yeah.
So they go from like 160 to 240. So that's so that's 50% going up or 33% going down. So it depends if you look at it as a bonus for unpaid, it's 50%, or if it's docking paid, then it's 33%.
When you go over to the left, I just want to see like, so
I
'cause I
actually,
see,
yeah, I didn't build those because I was just doing it based on, like, I'm doing some math here that's taking the 10,000 and then multiplying by the number of people and dividing by, like, here's the math for the sheet. It takes the, why is that highlighted? Yeah, it takes the total impact hours, the total number of people in the bucket, and divides it. So when you add in these unpaid contributor spikes, it pushes it over 100%. So I just haven't accounted for it in the math yet on
Okay.
that side. So I haven't, yeah, I was just classifying people into high, mid, low, or long tail. And then we have to add an additional classifier that there are people who were unpaid. And then I started getting into, like, I started doing it because I was like, oh, I know, like, Zepti, Santi, Craig, and a bunch of other people. But then I started getting down lower on the list, and I was like, crap, there's a lot of people that aren't paid here, but they're not like contributors in the TEC. So it started getting fuzzy for me who was like getting the unpaid bonus. And then that's when I figured I would just wait for this call and chat with you guys, because I know we had agreements for unpaid labor from a bunch of people, and I wasn't clear on the list. So I just wanted to double check with you guys, and then I can adjust the math so it doesn't overflow over 100% as far as I've set it up so far.
Cool. Yeah, the praise audit is really diving deep into that, and like, and there's some weird, it's like, it's not as clean as we'd like. Some people contributed a lot, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, let's pay you. And so then they got paid for 2 months. Like for instance, Septimus got paid for one last month. Like, where does that fit in on the, or like, YGG was paid for 2 months ish, maybe 3, because he got paid by the common swarm, and then he got paid by a common stack, and then he chose not to take payments. It's just not clean. But they're not that many edge cases. They can be handled one by one like that. And we are doing that in the praise audit to make sure. So the praise audit will definitely has a list of like who was paid each month. And I think yeah. So the other, yeah. Okay. Okay, so but let's try to go back to the topic of compromising. So what do you think of that idea of just like percentage of votes with plus? Do we include the other two proposals or not?
Yeah, I opened up the token log to see what the distribution of votes were, but I guess we closed all of those. But
You
that's
can
in
click
Sam.
on new issue. If you click on new issue, you can go to all of the issues.
Yeah, but it doesn't show the votes. If I think
I think
Livia posted it I posted it somewhere.
you posted it somewhere. I can post
Stewards, maybe?
on the stewards chat.
Oh, announcements. I put it in announcements
Okay.
in Discord. In TEC Discord. Did you see the results?
Oh, am I muted? No.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to copy the image over from the announcements channel, but it's not working for me for some reason. Come on, copy. Okay, we got this. Oh, cool. So, come on. Why isn't this working? New computers, man. Don't get them.
You don't have access, Jeff, to all the issues? Because I can still see them on
But
token log.
the issues don't show you the. Oh,
You
Oh,
know
you're
what?
looking for the
Uh,
votes?
Probably because I just set up my MetaMask today. There we go. I also didn't have this. I don't even know if I have XI set up on my
it's
MetaMask.
fine. The
Yeah,
picture is better because people could have voted after this, after
Yeah.
the results. So the picture is the official result.
Okay, cool. So the question is, do we merge the top two or do we attempt to merge the top four? And I guess my question is primarily how much technical difficulty is added in either of those scenarios.
They're both very simple.
I
Like,
think that the bottom two are represented by the top two because the no intervene is somehow represented by no abnormal intervention, and the bad for the commons, it's also somehow represented by PRAISEMAGEDON in terms of the paid contributor deduction.
I also think that the bad for the commons, um, like disputes with the solution of governance rights. So yeah, I think we should stay with the with that two proposals.
but what do you think, Jeff? Your votes.
Yeah,
Our votes
no,
are the
that's
only ones that matter. So this is just people in the crowd.
no,
Sorry,
I'm
just
happy to
quick.
go ahead,
Emily,
Suga.
sorry, just real quick. The image that you've got there is different from the one Livia just posted in Softco. I'm a little confused.
Maybe I posted the wrong one. That's the right
The
one,
one
the one
that
they're
Livia
showing.
posted looks. Yeah, because the one. Yeah, okay, just checking. The one. So the
Oh
one you
yeah, I
posted.
definitely posted the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
Too many screenshots.
I think that was the first or the primaries or whatever that first round was called.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, what do you think, Jeff? Top two or all four? I could really go with either way, but
Yeah, I mean, if the community feels the top two represent the bottom two, then I think that's an easier solution. But yeah, I'm happy to consider alternative viewpoints. If there's anyone that feels that those two aren't representative of the opinions of the community, we can definitely integrate more.
So I missed that wonderful session yesterday because my little daughter has been ill and had to kind of an emergency doctor's appointment. So I'm really sorry. I must have missed a little discussion. But so I'll just say for my part, it seems like the top two would be the more appropriate way to go, since I think as Griff, you posted in the forum that combining them is in the spirit of what we had kind of hoped to suggest in the is it the code of conduct? There was 10 votes, which obviously is way too few. But so just in the spirit of that, it seems to me a more technical approach would be the top two. But maybe I missed something in that call is what I'm trying to say.
does anyone think that we should use all four? Doesn't sound like it so far, but maybe someone's like who wants to make that argument.
Also impossible to use all four for obvious reasons, right?
Well, what we would do is we'd say like, 41% to the top one, 40% to PRAISEMAGEDON, 7%, I don't know, 5% to best intervention, 4% to bad for the commons. And then we'd get impact hours for all of them. And then everyone's impact hours would be added to that. What's sad is that's what we should have done. Honestly, like that, if that was, what's really cool is this compromise is coming to a good solution. But what would be even better is if at the beginning we had that approach, and then for this runoff, that if we knew it, that we were going to end up compromising, then everyone could have actually just voted for the ones that they liked the best, knowing that result would happen, and it wouldn't have been a strategic vote to choose for no abnormal intervention over the best intervention is to intervene. In the end, a lot of people are compromising their votes because of that strategy, which sucks, and it was a mistake. But hey, here we are. So I think I'm just listening to you guys. I think we do lean towards the mistake, and we just go with the top two. But lesson learned.
Yeah, that's a really good point with the first past the post dynamics. Like it's the same kind of like strategic voting that you have in a lot of like national elections where like I'll vote for a dominant party like Republican or Democrat because an independent or a green or whoever else isn't going to win. They just don't have a chance. So definitely agreed on the need for like ranked choice voting tools. And actually, this is something we brought up in the governance and other communities as well as like more tools that you can like plug a token into and it gives you like different functionality. I think that's one of the great things we've realized in this whole discussion is like more tools for these contexts where they're needed.
I think Snapshot's going to get us really far. Snapshot is so easy to integrate with and play with.
Nice.
But you can't do, the reason there's no ranked choice token voting is because doing ranked choice, moving arrays in Solidity like that to calculate that is just really expensive. Like it would never fit in a block. It'd take so many transactions and filling so many blocks. And it's really annoying. But that's why it doesn't exist. So, but Snapshot's
awesome.
So, anyway, back on task. So 52.48%.
Yep.
And we should use the decimals to at least 5 places because impact hours sig figs are what they are. We'll probably be doing it matters if you get 0.1 impact hour, so if you have 100, you would need at least 4 or 5, 6 sig figs. That's like that.
Cool.
And then if you're down with that, then now it sounds like the next step is really like nailing down your buckets.
So maybe I can clean up this sheet a bit or sort of introduce how I went through it, and then happy to. So this was one of the things, I think one of the levers we need to get more people into is the levels of contributors. So this was like my shot at it, allocating high, mid, low. If we want to have like 2 or 3 or 4 more people, or I guess as many as want to weigh in, and then we just can like average across them. If like 3 people think it's high and 1 person thinks it's mid, then they're high, sort of thing. Does that sound like a way to allocate contributors in buckets? Or maybe there's like, I know Griff, you probably have a fantastic oversight of all of the contributions, so I would almost say, I'm happy with your opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down, of course, to get some sense making. I would also suggest that instead of trying to fit them in high, medium, low, and long tail buckets, that we give people a score of some sort and then decide how many people are in each bucket. And that will make it easier for you to also do the math of the percentages and just say like, okay, there's only 25 people in the high bucket. There's what numbers do you have right now?
25, 50, 100, 200, roughly.
So then let's make that, maybe it's 30, 60, maybe it's 25, 50. It's up to you, and then 100, and then long tail. But I think it's cleaner to not, this is like a good first estimate, but I think it'd be cleaner to say the number. And then, because in the end, there's going to be this laser line, and the person who's like the top mid is going to have a tough draw compared to the person who's the bottom high, right? And they're only 1 slot different. And so there's like a I don't know if we want to do like some sort of like what YGG's like gradual thing might be nice as opposed to this like laser line, this like, oh yeah, sorry, this person, everyone gets the same up until you. That sounds painful.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of the gradual. That was the idea for the buckets was to make it easier to decide because it's really difficult to say like, who did more between like Griff and Livia. But to say that, hey, they're both high, that's clear. But what order of high was the more difficult part. But if we are merging this with the existing list, then we already have an ordering and we're just, yeah, I guess smoothing that or, yeah, I did like YGG's gradual
What if
distribution as well.
what if we use like we maintain buckets, but the ordering is determined by their actual impact hours. So like we do the buckets, but then like whatever and not necessarily impact hours with deductions, but the impact hours without deductions, like ignoring the deductions, just saying like the praise that would have, because we can get YGG made a list of like if there were no deductions, this is how many impact hours would have been given to each person. So if we remove that, that's like a pretty interesting sense-making tool at the very least. So we could do the buckets, but then order within the bucket could be determined by like how many impact hours, ignoring all the deductions, you would have gotten.
Yep, that works. So was that in Sean's, where did he post that again?
I posted it in your issue, I think it was. In your GitHub issue. I think if you go to new issues, yeah. You go to new issues and then go to issues. Oh, well, there's probably a million ways for you to find it.
It's in SoftGov. I'll
Those-
just comment on his post and then I'll post it in
Praisemageddon.
SoftGov.
And it's like the last comment, I think. Well, that one. That link. Maybe preview changes. How do we see that in a pretty way?
I just posted in SoftGov.
Oh, okay. We see it well in his issue. Yeah.
So where was the part that we are talking
Oh, the
about?
link lower. There's a link right there. It's like see organized research notebook here. Oh, no, not it. Yeah, that's
the one.
yeah. So, total hours received. I think total hours received is that number. He has bad numbers here, like his data was wrong or something. There's like, if you look at row 19, there's oops, fix me. That's always a good sign that there's something wrong with the data. So like these numbers are not to be trusted. We'll need to clean it up a little bit, but at least the total hours received is the list of like, yeah, how many impact hours they would have gotten if they had no deductions.
Okay, cool.
And it might be good also to wait for this praise party that is happening today for the TEs and have the updated list after this.
Definitely, like for the final numbers, but to get YGG to do the math, like we can always input the final numbers. Like there's also adjustments that are happening. Like some people were deducted when they shouldn't have, some people weren't deducted when they should have. And there was also praise that was missed, praise that was dished, but didn't get quantified. And so some of that will get quantified on Sunday. All sorts of fun stuff. Praise that went to Danilo when it was really supposed to be for Daniel O. You know? We're working on it.
Yeah, Daniel O. That was a confusing week in there.
Yeah. Damn it. And they're both rock stars. That's anyway. So but let's kind of agree on how we're going to turn PRAISEMAGEDON into something. So like it includes, I mean, do you think that the gradual thing is like a good way to go? Or because we could just keep it as buckets. In the end, it's only 48% and stick with the plan, what was voted on.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what is an easier, like you recommended, rather than bucketing, giving contributors a score. So I'm curious to run through sort of or to turn the sheet over to you and say, hey, do you want to like model the score process that from your perspective, and then we can do that? Are you thinking we would get like, I'm kind of thinking like social signal processing, like unless, I mean, I feel like you probably have the best idea of the high level, like everyone who's participated in the TEC. So I'm happy for you to input a score. If the community feels, or if we feel that we need a wider sort of perspective on that, then we can get maybe 3 people doing scores and then average them. Or is that kind of what this is like also responding to the question you had on the forum, like how do we decide the buckets? Do we get a few people to weigh in and then just like aggregate them into one final decision? Or I'm also happy for you to like lead the process and then.
Maybe it's easier to do a ranking. So I'm just trying to think of the best way. It's like scores versus rankings versus buckets. I definitely don't. Well, what I would really strongly recommend is making sure that we have like a clear number of how many in each bucket. That I feel a lot of conviction for. The best way of ranking people might not be a score. It's hard. It might be ranking. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this? Livia, you do a lot of voting stuff. Do you have thoughts on the best way to categorize humans? Beautiful snowflakes.
Well, I think some of the discussion started because of the ranking and because of like which outputs led us to the ranking we have now, and then questioning those outputs. So maybe I do like the buckets for how like it seems like very fair to everyone based on an output that is very easy to look at, like how active and engaged people were, kind of thing. But then I think your point is great. Like the lower person of the high activity and the higher person of the medium activity shouldn't have to like have a conflict there. So if we have like the buckets and then apply YGG's like curve, I think we could have a smooth transition between all of them.
So then we would need a ranking though. Like, we would still need this person's the top of the top and this person's the bottom of the top, right?
What if the rankings, I'm just exploring this compromise, keep the rankings from the from the raw distribution. So like there is a ranking right now according to how much impact hours everyone's had. Then we do the bucketing and we say, okay, high, 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 medium, medium, high, 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 low, 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 which then partially reorganizes. So like some of the people would be in a mid, but then once we mush them together, then it becomes like you're in the high bucket, but you maintain the ordering of the current list within the high bucket. You're in the medium bucket, but you maintain the ordering of the current list in the medium bucket. You're in the low bucket, but you maintain the ordering of the list in the low bucket. And then we don't have to re rank each, because I think that's A, difficult, and B, tricky to get everyone right, because everyone may say, oh, that person and this person should be swapped. But if we take the ranking of the list as it is,
Well,
and then yeah.
I think the problem there is then we do the deductions twice, because on the current list there's a bunch of people who are deducted from pay, and then you apply the boxes and then you do the deductions again effectively. So I would say exactly that, except you only apply the deductions once. I think you still want to apply the deductions post bucket or post ranking, right? Because you could otherwise you could use the current list and not do deductions, or you can use the ranking. I think it would be fun to also post the list without deductions and show people that, because like that's the real list. Like I feel like we get caught on like, oh well, look at all the volunteers on the top, but really like we could have a list showing if there were no deductions, like here's what would happen, here's what would have been that, and apply that for this bucketing, for the structuring of the buckets. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, that sounds reasonable. And I agree that the double deduction does cause an issue there. So if we start with the list without deductions to get the raw ranking, and then we I thought GrubyBot joined the channel. So if we start with the raw list without I think that's an important list to have anyway, whether that's like used or it's just there because it's useful to see, kind of like a stack ranking without deductions. I think that sounds like a good idea. So that can be the raw ordering in the buckets, but we still need bucketing. So I'm curious if there's Griff, do you have the time and capacity to go through and just put people into high, mid, low? I did a first pass through. I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate because I'm not 100% everyone's contributions. I'm sure you have a much better view. We can also invite a few other people and then do a 2 of 3 say hi. Okay, it's high. And then I agree, we just need to make sure that the numbers of people per bucket, and again, this can change. This was just kind of a first back of the napkin math saying 25, 50, 100, 200.
I think the most important thing is that every person who's saying high, medium, low is aligned with like what makes for a high, a medium, or a low. Like what are the I've been doing token engineering for since before it was called token engineering, and have been contributing to the space versus but never touched the token engineering commons, versus I've been doing token engineering commons since July and have gone to every call. Which are both of those factored in, or what's the metric?
Yeah, good point. I would say high. If you haven't been to TEC, if you haven't been involved in the TEC, you're not high. Like even if you've been contributing to TE, I would say that puts you into the mid category. You have to be involved in the TEC to be high. Like there's no, even if you have been involved in TE in the background for a long time, if you've never been to a TEC call, you're not a high contributor in the builders pool of the TEC one way or the other. I think there's probably within the TEC contributors, there's like people who have put a ton on the line, and there's people who come to meetings occasionally and do stuff occasionally. And I think those will be pretty easy to, or easier anyway, to separate between high and mid. And I think ultimately, like, being the reason I think the buckets help is because even if you're in mid, it's compared to a raw distribution where you were like not an active contributor, you probably have more impact hours in the like blanket mid bucket than you did in the distribution as it was like raw. So even if you're like, hey, I'm more than a mid, it's like, yeah, but you still have like half a percentage point more impact hour total builder governance pool, because we're doing the bucket thing, or at least we're 50% or 48% of it. It should help more than it harms, I think.
Yeah. So if you're like a rock star token engineer, then you just end up in the, but you never touch the TEC, you end up in the mid. If you're like if you're just like think like Fernando from Balancer. I don't think he ever got praised, but like, where's Trent? Is Trent high? I mean, he kind of came in the TEC.
I would say Trent is a mid to high. And this is where there can be some like, mid to high. I would say he's probably more mid, because like I classified myself as mid as well. Like anyone who wasn't like, for me, it was because there's only 25 high spots. It's like those are pretty like the people who are there, the people who soul is on the line, they're picking up things, nothing is slipping, they're making things move ahead. Those are the high people. And then that was kind of easier to say, okay, this person is like incredibly value aligned. They're working in the sidelines. They're doing all sorts of important token engineering stuff, but they're not like all there in the TEC. Then they're a mid. And I mean, there may be one or two people in there that's like, okay, Z can be high, and it depends on the number of people in the bucket, right? So if you have 20 and you're looking for 5 more, it's like, okay, Simon, Trent, V are people who could be put into that, but I would say actually those people are probably more mid, and reserve the high for the people who are like on the ground doing stuff in the TEC on the regular. And then low was like someone who is in TE and like we know their work is important. Like Fernando, I would probably put him mid to low. Like he, as far as I am aware, has not even engaged with the TEC.
Not at all.
He's doing stuff that's great. But I would probably lean towards low if they like haven't reached out, they haven't engaged, but they are doing token engineering work over there.
In the end, a lot of those guys also will just not get any impact hours because they didn't activate their trusted seed. So.
Right.
There's one big metric for engagement that I think we're missing, and we would only see it if we dig through addresses, and I don't know how that is in terms of ethical or privacy, but all of the people that voted on token log, there are 60 unique voters there. I think this is like a high engagement, and maybe it's someone that saw the newsletter and didn't talk to nobody and just came in here and voted. And this person is probably very in the know and might be following things from a distance. So I don't know if that is interesting to look at or not.
Was that someone in particular?
No, I don't know. I'm saying this is the problem because to know, we would have to like look at the addresses, and I don't know how ethical is that, or if we want to consider that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, how do we cut scope? Adding things is not something I'm excited about.
Okay, so forget about it. It was just a thought.
Yeah, I don't know. So hard. Okay, so let's see. I want to understand what else is in PRAISEMAGEDON. Is there a UBI dimension or no?
There was no, I guess the UBI was kind of like at a bucket level, right? It's like, you get this amount. If you're that amount of contributor, you get this amount. If you're this type of contributor, you get. So it's kind of like bucket level UBI. Although I don't think it's similar to. Yeah, well, I guess it's
No,
breaking up the classifier by that group and then saying that's the tier of UBI for that group. I guess we can look at it that way.
okay. And then how do we do? So we'll do the buckets, and so is in the end, is it saying that your distribution will only have 10,000 impact hours? Can we make it just the same number of impact hours that exist in my distribution, and that'll make things a little bit easier?
Yep, I chose 10,000 because it was in that ballpark and the numbers were easy, but we can definitely plug in whatever the exact number is, and then that keeps kind of parity between the two, and that makes averaging easier as well.
Great. Let's see, diff augmented impact hours composite.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
About the buckets, are they modifiable? Can they be changed? Can people move, people who contribute more eventually or less eventually?
Yeah, so I guess we're looking at the work that has been done from like the beginning of the TEC praise process to the hatch. Moving forward, I didn't really think about that with PRAISEMAGEDON. I wasn't really proposing the buckets as a move forward strategy. Well, I guess I'm not opposed to it. I hadn't really thought of it like people moving between the buckets. I was just looking at the contributions so far and then saying, hey, this person was a high, mid, or low, or long tail, and then doing the impact hours distribution off of that. I hadn't really thought about the buckets moving forward and like having people dynamically moving between them. But that's a good point. I don't.
Okay, so
Right.
I know I think YGG and everything that's going to happen soon, and I have to go to another call, unfortunately. So action steps. You're going to share with me that sheet, and I guess I would love for Livia also to do the rankings if you can, Livia. I think we're the ones who have been here the entire time. I think the only ones. So maybe it just makes sense for us two to do it and try to limit the work that needs to be done. And then can we meet later today again? Are you free in 5 hours during what would normally be the TEC meme party?
I'm heading up to Toronto to meet up with Nico around that time. But we talked about the TEC labs. There's a thing on Sunday and there's also the thing happening right now. Is that correct?
There's a thing happening right now with YGG, which it would be super cool to figure out how to apply what we were just talking about like smoothing out the buckets. Maybe the buckets are like I don't know, trying to figure out how to smooth out the buckets. Maybe we don't smooth out the buckets. I don't know. You and YGG sort that out and sort out exactly what I really need more than anything is like a final impact hour distribution for PRAISEMAGEDON. Like this person gets this many impact hours all the way down. And I'm open to however that looks. But I think it does make sense to have Livy and I do sense making around the buckets.
Just a time suggestion. Hi, Tim. You're in this call. Maybe we could stretch here, like the three of us with YGG for this next hour, and then jump into the TC sprint planning for the last hour. Would that be like a thing?
Sure. I guess I don't see YGG there yet. I see, it looks like Heater's sharing his screen.
They are finishing a call that they started with us.
Yeah, this is just a really, really important TEC sprint planning call, though. It's like, I'm hoping we can hatch on Tuesday. I think during this call we'll probably decide that maybe.
True. Okay, never mind. We can try to do that on Sunday, maybe, in the params.
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to need the full 2 hours of the sprint planning. I don't know if that helps. If there's some free space that you guys need, maybe in the next 2 hours, maybe you can carve out some time there.
Yeah, if YGG pops in, maybe I can pop out, or Olivia and I can. I mean, I think it just needs to be. I don't know, Olivia, if you feel like you need to be there, but
No, you guys can figure it out. Yeah.
yeah. So I would rather start the sprint planning call and have extra space at the end to talk as stewards about how we're going to hatch in like 5 days. It seems really, really important.
Cool. Yeah. So so I've shared the sheet. Griff and Livy, when you have a moment to drop in, I've created 2 more categories here. I'll create one for Griff's level and Livy's levels, and if we want to do a 3 merge, or if we feel that we need more input, I just don't want to speak on behalf of everybody. I guess if there are feelings that we need more people weighing in on that, then we can have 3 or 5 signals from the community and then merge them into one, and hopefully we'll get one bucketing. I'm going to chat with Sean about some of the other, like getting a contributor list of impact. Oh no, we already have that. That's this here. This is the total list without total hours received. Cool. So we already have that. Cool. So Griff and Livy, when you have time to bucket those contributors, great. I will chat with Sean about how to smooth out the buckets and see if we can have any further next steps for our next chat. And so is that the sprint is going on now, or that's another call that you have to run to and later this afternoon?
It's going on now. I think most of the stewards are in this call. I don't know if we're going to switch to stewards or not, but we're already in Softco.
Oh, cool.
Okay, yeah. Figure out with YGG. I'll pop over when it feels good, just to see what's up.
YGG is there now.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, then. We'll catch you guys in a bit. I'll keep notes in the sheet, and I dropped it in the SoftGov channel for you and Livy, Griff. I tagged you both.